So I was stuck with a chapter of my book needing a scene for a kitchen garden, and not being a collector, I don't have a doll's house for it. But my mum had made a nice little doll's house shed thing, but it didn't have proper walls. But I thought it might be usable for a kitchen part of the house if I put some bricks on it. So I ran around my workshop and couldn't find, I found this, which is a brick stencil, and I couldn't find the material to go with it. So I thought, well, this is obviously another job for Goom. So, and then I thought, well, I haven't got the spray to spray it on, but I also realised that if I stuck this and baked it, as soon as I took it off, the bricks were going to come apart. So I realised it was going to need to have a foundation of liquid Fimo anyway. So I'm going to put a foundation as an adhesive for this little stencil, this little stencil, and then I shall use some glue on top of it. It's very important that you don't use too much liquid Fimo on the base if you're going to do this, just a little bit, because if you use too much, the coloured stuff later is going to bleed underneath the bricks. So I just need to know about what size it is. So it's about that size, and then it goes that way a bit. So I'm spreading it on to the board very thinly. You can hardly see this, and that's rather the point. So then I take the stencil and press it down to that surface. And I'm happy to use my fingers. Some people don't like to get the fingers sticky. If you don't like to get your fingers sticky, this is probably not the technique for you. Right, I can take any excess liquid off there. Once again, save that. I'll just give it a little tiny wipe to make sure that I haven't got too much liquid in these brick holes. You can't see those, I understand that, because it's translucent, as is the base. The base, so it's just showing the base colour. So I've already got some, luckily I didn't even realise I'd got this, I've already got some goo mixed up in terracotta. I can't even remember what I used it for, but you simply squeegee this into the stencil, not too thick, not too thin. Because my mix is not perfect, there are a few little lumpy bits which I have to deal with. Be careful that your stencil doesn't move when you're doing this, because if it moves, you'll get a smear. But the liquid Fimo should hold it on quite firmly. So just taking a little time to get this in. As I said, there are a few little bits that are just sort of tearing it back off. That's because this mix isn't as smooth as it should be. And I don't mind that some bits of this are thicker than others, because it gives a nice irregular effect. And I want this house to look like old bricks, not modern bricks. Most buildings have the odd little brick that's been replaced, etc. So it really doesn't matter if you've got some that are thicker, redder, whatever than others. Right, so that's about right. I'll just check for any really fat bits. I'm happy with that. Go around the edge and just scrape up the excess because we don't need that. And I'm a frugal Yorkshire woman, so I don't like to waste anything. Right. And this is the very simple thing that we do next. This is just a grey sand, which I bought from that Swedish furniture company that they have now. And it's called Colored. Well, it would be called something strange, wouldn't it? And you buy it in the flower department where they sell the cactuses and the paper flowers, the silk flowers, and as I say, sometimes real flowers. This is one of those decorative materials that they have in there. They have black and grey. They may have other colours sometimes, but when I went in they just had black and grey. I was actually looking for a sandy one, but I suppose I could go down to the beach for that, couldn't I? But this grey one comes out very well. I was really quite pleased with it. Just a little bit more. What doesn't go in can come off and be used again. So just covering over all the bricks with plenty of this sand. It doesn't matter if you put too much on, but if you put too little on, it can be a bit too red. And to give it a bit of age, it needs to be greyed off anyway. This gives the effect of quite old bricks. Right, so next thing for me to do is just give it a gentle pat, and that helps the sand to stick to the goo. Once again, I've got to be careful not to move the stencil. It should stay still. Right, happy with that. And for my next trick, just tip the old lid off. So I'm just going to turn that way and allow it to fall off. You can see it sticking to the old liquid film on the side as well there, but that doesn't matter. Not a problem. I'll save that for later. Tip it back into my pot. Okay, that's looking pretty uninteresting at the moment, but I think we'll soon solve that. There we go. So as I lift that stencil, those lovely bricks are revealed. And all that remains to do is clean that brick stencil for the next time and pop this straight into the oven as quickly as possible, because if the glue is a little bit soft, it can run and you can get a little bit of bleeding. Any bits of bleeding can be cut out later with a single-sided blade, but the sooner you put it in the oven, the less likely it is that that's going to bleed. And if you find it's bleeding, make a thicker mix and add more of this grit, and that will come out very nicely, I believe. So I'll show you it when it's finished.